Thank you. I will call to order the October 14th meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. We have commissioners in attendance, Commissioner Marks, Commissioner Buscarin, and myself. And then roll call on virtual, participating virtually. Commissioner Planzer, can you hear us?
Yes.
And Mr. Levitt?
Yes.
And accordingly, all votes tonight will be taken by roll call. The meeting is being both audio and video recorded. Please use care to mute your microphone or speak through the chair as well. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda as published? Hearing none, we'll consider that adopted by unanimous consent. We have the minutes from September 9th. Are there any questions, or those were in the packet? Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll consider those adopted by unanimous consent. We need to ratify the warrants of September 10th, 24th, and October 8th. Are there any questions or a motion to ratify those three warrants?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the warrants? Hearing none, Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Levitt,
Aye.
Marks,
Aye.
so Karen.
Aye.
That'll bring us to public comment for any items not otherwise on the agenda. We don't let anyone in the public show comment, seeing none. Anyone online?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to pending leases and contracts set forth on Exhibit 1. I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have 4 items here to go over on the exhibit. First one is Clean Harbors Environmental Services. This is for the transition of the AFFF foam to the new fluorine-free F3 foam to drain the tanks. And then, of course, input the new foam. It's a 1-year contract, $154,375. Looking to do that at the start of this fall. The second contract is for Cobo Utility Construction. This is for the apron flood lighting project that we are looking to start here within the spring. 1.588 million. Of course, Cobo won the bid for that. This is an FAA 90% share, a state local share of both 5%. The next one is for the 5-Star Airport Alliance. This is for the preventative maintenance of our terminal baggage belt system. It's a 3-year preventative maintenance service contract. $42,787.86. And the last one is for the license agreement for the airport manager's housing located at 16 Kitty Wake, as agreed in that document. So I ask for your approval, questions and comments on those, and ask for your approval on those.
Are there any questions on any items on the exhibit? Commissioners, I can't see right now. Ms. or Ms. Planzer, any questions?
No.
No question. Just out of interest on the draining the foam tanks, what is the schedule for when each of those will be done?
Do you have a schedule on that? Do you know?
We're waiting on executed contracts.
Got it.
But we're hoping to pull the trigger sooner than later.
It notes start late fall, so we still on track for that.
We anticipated September, but that didn't work. So again, it was contract negotiations. Hopefully we can get ferry reservations for later this month.
Thank you. Not hearing anything further, is there a motion to approve the pending leases, contracts, and agreements set forth on Exhibit 1 as reviewed by Manager Smith?
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Love it.
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Karen?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. And that will bring us on to the jet fuel discussion. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, for jet fuel discussion, really not much to report, as Rich Lasden, our consultant with McFarland Johnson, is still working on trying to get one more good additional quote, as he had outlined in our last conversation. We did get a preliminary kind of quote from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation when we spoke with them a couple of weeks ago. They are actually building a fuel farm at the Taunton Airport. Their initial kind of quote was for a 10,000 gallon fuel farm, about $1.7 million. So it's not too far off from what Rich had proposed in our last meeting. But again, he's still working on trying to find quoting in his realm and should have a better answer at our next airport commission meeting. So that's all that I really had for that one.
I'm sorry, the 1.7 million was to build how large a farm?
A 10,000 gallon tank farm. That's based off of the Mass DOT's pricing.
So directly scalar, 17 million.
Assuming that, yeah.
I don't know that it's likely to be directly scalar, you know, with mobilization and whatnot, but then if you were to consider a Nantucket factor. So more to come on that, but it doesn't, you know, not sure that that's the direction that really the commission wanted to head anyway. But there was really support for that, but let's get the data so we can make informed decisions. And anything further on jet fuel at the moment?
Are we making out reservations?
I've been trying to reach out to Bob Davis. He's been busy. I know they're in the process of trying to hire his replacement, and it's phone tag at this point with him. He calls me when I'm in meetings. I call him back. He's unavailable, so I keep hounding him.
So what is the plan as far as like, I understand that Global Fuel is the one that's getting a bunch of the reservations, or is that not true? Is the fuel contract tied in any way to the boat reservations? How does that kind of play out? Can you just clarify that for me? Cause I kind of thought that.
World Fuel requests our reservations to the steamship. I think it's 6 months in advance.
So they're doing that for us.
They're requesting, the reservations that they requested for this year was, like peak season, 18 a week. And we got 14 last July and August. So they've increased the number of reservations that we're requesting. I have not heard what has been granted yet. I don't think that's gone out yet. I think that's
I'm
a
wondering,
combination
you
with
shouldn't also
Mr.
like try to get a few reservations on our own outside of World Fuel, right? Or, I mean, cause the airport can request reservations or Noonan, have them get us some extra reservation. I'm just curious if there isn't if World Fuel isn't. I hear that they're asking for them, but maybe they don't have the same.
I think that's the lead with the GM and
Trying to get
Warren possibly to make that connection.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a good idea for us to commingle our fuel contract and how they're coordinating reservations and then us trying to coordinate reservations and getting things.
I don't think they should be having anything to do with our reservations, honestly.
Okay.
That's just me, right? Like I think I said before, like none of my fuel suppliers coordinate any reservations for me. It's the trucking company.
Yeah.
Cause they're the guys that have to get the truck on the boat. And they manage all that. I don't know if it's worth a conversation with them. To see if they're willing to.
Well, I'm meeting with Adwin next week at the Mama conference. I can bring that up with him.
Okay.
We can chat about that too. So he and I we've been on.
Is that the Global Fuel?
Yeah, he's with, it's World Fuel.
World Fuel.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe it makes sense to also chat with Noonan and say they're the ones that are doing the trucking.
You know, I think it's worth the conversation. I've been here a little over 20 years and we've utilized World Fuel and they've done that for the entire time. So I don't, it might be worth looking into.
I'm not saying it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we're having problems and maybe we should try to see if somebody else can help us with that problem. That's all. That's where I'm leaning towards, right?
Right. I do think that they are making the right phone calls. We're talking to the right people at steamship, the right people at Noonan. The individual that you had recommended gave us, transfer or move things around at least to get us a couple here and there.
I mean, I guess maybe even if you talk to him and it's like, hey, listen, we're only able to get these. We want to get those contracts, those reservations from you.
Sure.
Cause they end up with they have a lot because of, they do everything,
Yeah.
all the asphalt and everything else.
I think a lot of those questions would be asked if we can have that conversation with the manager at steamship, for sure.
Potentially.
Right.
I don't know that he's gonna get that part of it, but maybe if you'll help us get the reservations for sure, I think that's.
Sure.
And if you guys think we need to pull in the, we're commissioners, we should go to their commissioners, maybe we can help with that and getting directly to the reservation people. I'm not sure if we can or not, but if we need some help with that. I'm willing to make a couple phone calls myself, so.
My sense was that, I think we really need to be sure that the steamship, they're likely aware, but that this is a request from the Nantucket Airport.
Right.
And not necessarily just from a supplier. Now, I know that they, know that that's where it's going,
Yeah.
but that this need is established and to more formally, make sure that upper management is aware that the airport has had to restrict uplift as a result of throttled, or excuse me, maybe perhaps a better term is, limited supply availability,
Mhm.
understanding that they are also, working with limited capacity, but, I really think we have to, I think my sense is to give it another month, but that if not, we might, if we can't sort of, there's gotta be a way to connect. If you guys can't somehow schedule a meeting or a Zoom, something to relay that, let us know, I guess, but I hope it can happen. I mean, just gotta make it scheduled.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything else in jet fuel for right now? Work on it.
Yeah,
I have-
a couple of things. Those reservations that we have now, are they in the name of the airport in Noonan or World Fuel when they're on the books there? Who do they think has the reservation?
World Fuel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
World Fuel.
Got it.
Which again would mean as that floats up the chain at the Steamship Authority, there's nothing there indicating that that's the Nantucket Airport.
I would
That they're
assume,
hauling jet fuel.
I would assume that we're on that somewhere along the lines over the last
Nobody else.
25 years.
But maybe
But people
the,
change. People-
trying to make the
Right, right.
connection that it's a,
Yeah.
that it's a need. And that I think what we have to is get the message out that, as a result of the limited, we've actually had to implement restrictions on availability of fuel to the users of the airport, and that's the concern that we're trying to work around. So, we shouldn't just assume that they're, aware that that has happened, that it's not just they just want more, they want to keep the tanks full. It's an actual, negative result, and impact to the users of the aviation community, which I think is the important part. And then, the other question that I had was, were we able to obtain any data or information regarding the alternative of some additional refuelers, or are you still investigating that?
Yeah,
Which is fine.
I got some information. Wolffield does have, they basically said we can get as many trucks as we want. If we wanted to go down that road, they've had a location that actually leased 8 additional trucks. I don't know if that, I'm assuming that would maybe be like Augusta or something like that to get them through, the golfing tournament. So there's that, they can do short-term leases on trucks. They have larger avgas trucks if you wanted to go down the road of converting another underground avgas tank to jet. We could maybe lease a larger avgas truck to help with that side of things. So, because we are pumping more avgas, this last year. So World Fuel, I believe, is willing to do basically anything we ask them to do at this point. With, trying to help us out with our,
So that's
needs.
great to know, and perhaps for a future meeting, I would be interested in a staff recommendation. For, perhaps what you think operating this, and we can then discuss that as terms of what might be, there's not gonna be any additional storage online for next season. And if we had to start on a baseline of the same number of reservations, how many additional trucks might it take to just keep us out of the red, so to speak? Would be a number I would be interested in. And then it would be the logistics, of course, of, you're not gonna get reservations for those trucks likely on,
They'd have to
into
come
July.
soon.
You'd have to get them probably in May or whatnot, but I would think that's the kind of thing that, and I don't know if they can bring them over full.
Mhm. Yeah,
It would,
interesting.
and then it would be on hazmat, but then you'd be filling that. Or if it was, you brought them over empty and they were just on standby to get them over. So again, I get that there's a lot of pieces there. Because then maybe they would, have to fill that hazmat slot. It wouldn't seem to me to make sense to bring them over
you would-
empty, but
yeah, you would-
I don't know.
You wouldn't do it because the truck still has hazmat. It's not full maybe, but it's got hazmat. Unless it's been,
Yeah,
um,
so again, I think
yeah,
those
you're gonna
details.
pay the price, so
But
you might as
it-
well bring it full.
Right, so, what might you suggest for 4 or 5 trucks or, what might work and where you put them but it does seem like a good idea to get a few if possible. And then, I mean, would that help you operationally as well for, fueling, or then you're gonna be limited by operators?
So we can all, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we can only operate so many at a time.
Right.
Depending on
Yeah.
staffing levels.
Yeah, that's what-
But if we had, say, 3 or 4 7,000 gallon trucks sitting there that are full of fuel, that could possibly get us through a pinch on a weekend. How do we keep them full, I guess is another question. But then you also need to think about, it adds additional workload for quality control checks for operations to keep them up and running, because you're gonna have to put them you're gonna wanna move these, they don't wanna sit.
Sure, yeah,
So mechanically, wise, everything's pump's gotta be moving, swivel's gotta be swiveling. So we gotta get them in the rotation, so it's added workload for operations on that end of things as well,
I
and
appreciate that.
possibly maintenance to keep things up and running.
That's why I think it would be important to have if you look at all the pieces from your operationally to make a recommendation. It's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, get 10, right? But,
Right.
would the better number be some lesser number, and especially maybe for trying something like this in the first year? That you do a lesser number that gets it again. I think if we were to maybe get them in the earliest season, we'd be able to get those full, and especially if we were able to get an extra load or two in, say, like May, and your other tanks were full, and then you had all of your refuelers full.
Yeah.
Heading into, sort of just ahead of Memorial Day, and then the refill after that maybe. So I think I'd be interested to hear with your consideration of operationally and all that, what you might think would be a good number between you and Mr. Smith. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can definitely.
Mr. Levitt, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just going back over both my notes and the minutes from when we discussed this last week, and there were a couple of things last month I wanted to follow up on. Just circling back to where we started on the reservations. As I understand it, last year, we had requested 16 reservations a week and we got 14. So we had talked about this year requesting more with the assumption that we're going to get knocked down. Did I hear you say the requests had not yet been put in? And if not, what number are we going to request? And if they have been put in, how many did we request to move up from the 16 requests that we had last year?
So the requests have been put in to the steamship by World Fuel. Peak season, so July and August, I believe we requested 18 per week. And as far as I know, nothing has been awarded yet.
Okay, and what did we do with the shoulder season leading up to the peak where ideally we want everything to be full at capacity before the peak hits?
So we had plenty of reservations on that end. We actually did not use all of our reservations in May and June. So those numbers are roughly the same.
So I guess that means that if we didn't use all our reservations and we're talking about bringing fuelers over, there would be some reservations where we could bring
Correct.
these additional fuelers over.
That's correct.
Okay, great. And then going on to talking about the fuelers, I know we got a little crazy about this and said, okay, let's say we bring 10 trucks over, where do we put them? And are there any regulatory issues that we come up against? And the only thing we heard was they have to be 10 feet apart. And you were going to think about whether there were any other regulatory issues we need to think about. Have you given that a thought, and was there anything else that we should be considering?
So as far as, yes, parking, there's regulations there, how far apart they have to be from each other. As far as NFPA is concerned and our quarterly checks that we do for FAA, we can do those all day long. I just don't know at what point you have 5 or 8 trucks sitting next to each other and the, say, fire chief or state fire marshal comes out and says that's basically a fuel farm at that point. I don't know the answer to that. It's something we were gonna have to look into. And maybe nothing. Or a containment of some sort. I don't know.
Well, perhaps
Well,
we,
it would be a shame to get all the trucks there and then find out that
Right.
we hadn't checked off some box and about where to put them. And then, sorry to cut you off, Mr. Gasper, but I just wanted to finish that thought because we had also talked about whether it would make sense to potentially put them in the rental car lot, which would mean relocating the fence and relocating those cars. And has that been played out at all?
No, we, I think, just talked about it internally. Nothing has officially. I think would be feasible. It's just, if we had to move a dozen cars, where would they go? And bump the fence out.
seems to me perhaps what I'm hearing is, why don't we consider what you would think the ideal number might be, and especially in year one, right? And then perhaps just sketch out where those would go. And then you could further explore that with, we could always, have an informal meeting with, the fire prevention, or protection officer,
Yeah.
someone, the proper person at NFD. And make sure that we don't have, any Achilles heels. It's just, a sketch plan that says this is what we have in mind. Want to make sure that, you're comfortable with that, and then we'd be able to keep going with this. And see what we could do to maybe help us, sort of come at this situation from a few different directions.
You keep on Bunker Road too, right?
I don't know. I don't think so because they're supposed,
Should be fenced in, I know, but
right, and they're not supposed to be on a public road. They're not street legal.
so but is Bunker Road, it's up on our end there, is that
I don't
technically illegal?
I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Cause you drive the ARF truck down there, that's same thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can look into it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to look into all the options for sure. I understand, yeah. It could be feasible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or to move the rental cars over there. Space there.
Well, we keep trying to work on it.
Yeah.
Right now. And make sure, I think the critical path is to, it sounds like to me like this is a great idea, whether it's 1, 3, 5, 10, whatever, but make sure that we're out ahead of it far enough that World Fuel, could plan for that.
Okay.
And, figuring that it's probably, April, May kind of course, once we take them, we're paying for them.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off of getting them too soon.
And also, just, you probably thought about this, but make sure that the fill connectors and the software all function with our stuff too. right?
Yeah.
That would all be on them, right?
Yeah.
There are.
Just
Understood.
something to think.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the last thing I had, following up on the discussion the last time, was we had talked about the possibility of converting one or two of the avgas tanks to jet fuel. I think Preston made a good argument that with av fuel sales increasing, he wasn't as comfortable converting both of them. So maybe if we shoot at doing one of them, and I thought somebody was gonna chase down a ballpark price for doing that. Did we get anybody to take a look at it and give us any numbers as to what that cost might be?
I have not had I was reaching out to Trask Petroleum. I haven't heard back yet.
Good.
So I'm working on that one.
We'll keep it on the agenda for next month and think. Appreciate, that we're trying to move in the direction and see whatever we can do to, the goal. To avoid, obviously, but just to state it, any uplift restrictions in the next season. And Mr. Levitt, do you have any further points?
No, you had a one line item there. Sorry to stretch it out so long.
No, you don't have to apologize. It's fine. I just want to make sure we cover the topic.
Yep.
So nothing further?
No, I do not have anything further on this.
Thank you. Any other questions, anything further on jet fuel staff? All right, thank you. We'll move on to pending matters, PFAS investigation update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the update. I would like to defer to Madison Collins, our environmental coordinator, to provide those updates.
Welcome, Ms. Collins.
Thank you. Yeah, we have no major updates for any types of documents that have come out. But we do have that 12 homes have been connected to municipal water. The site work has been completed at 21 Monahanset and 83 Skyline. The contractor is generating quotes for the remaining 5 houses. And the estimated time to complete these houses is through this fall, and potentially and before the end of the year at the latest. With the homes that have not been hooked up to well water yet, those are because they were seasonal residents and they had rented their home to seasonal residents, and because of that, they didn't want to have all this construction happening while they're trying to rent their properties. So that's why those homes have not been hooked up yet, rather than it being because we weren't able to get contractors out.
So end of the calendar year, we're cautiously optimistic. It's nice. I mean, we're really just hoping to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and fully understanding there's circumstances of the site is a little different.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anything further on
Nope.
PFAS update?
I do have one just to add, Mr. Chair. For the phase 2 consent order that was submitted to Mass DEP prior to the deadline, that did get submitted. Mass DEP has requested a meeting to just discuss a little bit further that letter that's scheduled for October 30th.
Okay. Any questions? All right, seeing none, move on to the crew quarters project.
Yeah, perfect. For the crew quarters project, we finally received the official certificate of occupancy last week that has been issued. Moving down with the discussion with the SW Cole pending contract. I've been finding some more documentation on this and have presented these documents to legal counsel. I was advised by them to curb this discussion until our next AirCom meeting. There's some more review of those documents that they want us to go through. So at your permission, I'd like to put that with the SW pending contract on hold until next meeting.
Commissioners, any concern with holding this to the next meeting? Hearing none, we'll do that by unanimous consent.
Correct. And then moving on with the change order, I did submit an email to all you commissioners in relation to a potential compromise that was brought forth by Pearl. They recommended us having the airport pay for the 2 code required change orders, and they were willing to eat the cost of those other 2. I did present this discussion to legal counsel and sought their counsel. And I still stand by with that compromise. I do feel it is the best course of action to seek for us to cover those 2 code required change orders and then the other 2 waive those as well. So I'll leave that up to the commission to discuss.
Okay. Commissioners, are we all inclined to follow staff recommendation or wish to have any further discussion? This will essentially, just to be clear, this will settle any dispute over the outstanding contracts on the change orders. And essentially we would pay 2 and they would forego 2. So it is essentially an agreement. And this is at your suggestion, you suggest this is the way we go with this. Any further discussion, questions?
What's the number?
It's roughly about $30,000. So it's the 2 that were code required, the one that was the 600 amp disconnect.
Yep.
That the HJ was not going to sign off on unless it was put in place. The other one was for the difference in retainage wall height because it was too far of an incline from that back porch doorstep down to where pretty much the step off is.
What are they giving us?
Roughly the same, about 30,000 is the other half.
What was the total amount of money that they're?
I have it right
No,
here.
please.
If that would be
Yeah,
helpful.
thank you.
So there's 4 change orders. Basement steel at 31,737. Height to the retaining wall at 11,000. I'm gonna leave the cents off. $11,817. 600 amp disconnect at $21,087 and a split rail fence at $3,455. And 2 of the items were code required. And then there's, perhaps some discussion about design and whether they were supposed to be on the plan or not. And there was also some, I think, discussion with staff at the time about some of these items as well. So those are the 4 items, and the discussion was that I'm just trying to find which 2 did you say that oh, I see, you just did numbers different. So the retaining wall at $11,817 and the 600 amp disconnect at $21,087 were code required, and the manager suggests that we should pay those 2. So say $33,000. The other 2 items was the basement steel at 31,700, split rail fence at say 35. So you're looking at 35,000 plus or minus that Pearl would agree to forego.
I have one question.
Yes.
With the upgrade of remember we asked for the preliminary so we could build a basement, right?
Right.
So now when we go to build a basement out, do we have to upgrade the service in order to build the basement out? And was that part of the original conversation or was it? And if it wasn't, then fair enough, and we have the interior stuff. And therefore I would get that even though you can turn the breaker down, the code official needs us to put this disconnect in, so that makes sense. But is it the understanding that they wouldn't bring the upgraded service into the building as part of that original discussion?
Mr. Cormier?
I believe that is the understanding, that it was designed to bring that service up to snuff so that we can expand into the basement.
I was just curious, is that what's on the contract? I mean, is that what we agreed to? And if that is, then fair enough. That's my question.
You mean on the design plans?
Yeah, does the design plan say that that's all we're doing is we're gonna put the infrastructure on the inside of the building and not bring it into the building? Because then that justifies all of this to me, that's all.
Mr. Cormier?
That is brought into the building, into the disconnect in the building. So whatever service we need in the building, the infrastructure is there for it.
Still didn't answer my question. Was the original contract, did it state that we were bringing in an service and the infrastructure in the building to build out the basement? Or does the contract state that we're only going to upgrade the equipment in the building and then pull that service out and have to pull a new service in when we go to build out the basement?
I
guess-
don't
I
know
guess-
about the original intent, but I know what's there is you don't have to pull anything out to upgrade to do the rest of the basement. There's no other work to be done to continue build out the basement.
So there's a 600 amp. The service that is in there now is rated to build out the basement. Is that what we're saying?
That is my understanding.
So if that's the case, then you have the equipment and you have the proper service in the building. Then I feel like we should do this as it makes it an appropriate compromise. Just.
I agree to that.
Clarification.
I agree to that as well.
You can't litigate it.
Well, let's.
Yeah, let me just ask a couple of questions. Just working back on that last back and forth, just to make sure it was clear. Is there 600 amp service into the building or is there 400 amp? What's coming in from the street?
Mr. Cormier,
I will double check the change order, what it says in the documentation. Just bear with me a sec. It's a 600 amp disconnect.
That wasn't the question. What is coming in from the street? Not what the disconnect is. What service was brought in?
Mr. Cormier, do you have that?
I'm reading the change order. I don't have that information in front of me. I wasn't prepared to answer that question.
Because I think to answer the last question was that if we're going to build out the rest of the basement and we need 600 amp service and 600 amp is not brought in from the street, we would have a substantial additional cost to upgrade from the 400 to 600.
Right, I think we're probably close on this, but I feel that to both Mr. Marks and Mr. Levitt's points, we would, Mr. Cormier, I appreciate that you're saying that's what you believe, but I feel like to agree to this, I would need to know
For sure.
in no uncertain terms that the electrical supply is suitable for the proposed development of the basement, and that we don't sign off on this and find out that we in fact didn't have that. So if that was something that you were in a position to confirm and or provide us that information, we could carry this forth to the next meeting with an understanding perhaps that we're, depending on where the rest of the commission is on this, that we are closer to settling this. We just need confirmation that in fact that service is suitable. Is that something that you feel like you could provide us?
Jace, are you still on board on the call?
I saw him earlier, Mr. Terrio. I don't see him on the,
He's not.
he's not.
We would all want that in writing.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that, that would go a long way here. Further, questions or comments on this, proposed, settlement on the change orders? So Levitt, is there
Yeah,
further?
I have two more things. My discomfort with the compromise is, did the code change at all between the time the project was designed and it was built? And if the answer is no, the code did not change, then it would seem to me that both the architect and the OPM have responsibility that the project was built according to code. And if we're finding out now that we have to pay additional money because it wasn't built to code, that was a design or management problem along the way. And we're paying significant sum for both the architect and the OPM, and they should have responsibility for that if they fell down on not signing off on a design or construction that met code.
Mr. Cormier, can you address that at all?
I do not have comments on that.
And if I may,
Yes.
my understanding is that the service conductors that come into the building are only rated for 600 amps. That's why the disconnect had to be put on, because the circuit breaker in the panel is rated for a higher amperage, which is in order to take care of the new addition in the basement. And that was the explanation that I was given by the electrical inspector when I asked him to explain it to me, because it didn't make sense, because technically you could just turn the circuit breaker down in the panel and then turn it back up when you upgrade the conductors. So that's where I believe that is right now. So that's why I asked the question. So I don't believe that the conductors coming in the building are suitable to do the upgrade, and I may not be correct. I'm just saying that's what I was led to believe in my discussion with them.
That's what we would really need to know. Because it would seem logically to me, and again, not knowing, not, electrical contractor. But if that was the case, why would you need the disconnect? Because you would have the panel.
The panel breaker would cover the
Would cover
service.
That's
right.
what I would have thought.
They had to put the
Right.
disconnect in there because he didn't want to rely on the breaker being turned down to protect the conductors coming in the building. That's how he explained it to me.
Mr. Cormier, is that as our OPM information that you could get on for us, please?
Yes, sir.
And then on the code change, I know you weren't prepared right now, but if you could, we would appreciate, I think, an answer to, a response to Mr. Levitt's questions.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Levitt, did you have another item?
No, I just want to clarify that I was talking about 400 or 600 amp service, and those may have been the wrong numbers. I think the two numbers are what service is required to take care of what's been constructed already and what was going to be required for the potential build out. So those are the two numbers that we could use the answer to.
Yep.
Is that-
understood.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then the code change question. So should we hold this until the November meeting? Sorry. Anything further on this item? No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cormier. I appreciate your attendance and working on that for us.
Sure thing.
And then terminal optimization, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, so still waiting a NOFO. It's imminent, as they continue to say. However, with the government shutdown, it appears we may not have an answer anytime soon, unfortunately. However, continual delays kind of puts an even tighter schedule for the grant application and grant reward in the spring. So we're keeping our options open there. Farland Johnson looks to have both the scopes for the geothermal and terminal optimization completed by this week for Ridge. So we should have those very soon.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, terminal optimization? Moving on to the manager report, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Moving on to the capital project requests.
Yeah, perfect. No change to FY27 capital project that we've been presenting to the commission the last couple months. Airport management is going to meet with the town Capcom to present the articles on November 13th. So that's all that I have for the capital project request.
Any questions on capital projects? Seeing none, thank you.
Yeah, just quickly. Did you mention at the last meeting, Mr. Smith, that you were going to be meeting with the FAA, was it, to go over the CIP plan?
Yes.
And could you tell us what came out of that meeting? Because I believe that was tied to the capital project requests.
Absolutely. I had that under my manager's report under the AIP projects section. So, but I can hit on that. Yeah, we did meet about a week and a half ago with FAA and Mass DOT in regard to our CIP for the next 5 years. Basically, the next year looks good on their end. They've requested next 2 years, everything looks good, set in stone. Of course, the last 3 years are pretty fluid as the FAA works in their realm. So they had no comments. The only difference is Mass DOT did let us know that they are taking a 10% pay cut across the board. In fact, all departments in the state of Massachusetts were forced to take a 10% reduction in funding and budget. And so the Mass DOT did let us know that money is going to be tight next year. I'm sorry, for FY27, with no promises per se to any of the ASNP items. And so they will keep us apprised as to what their budget's going to look like. So that we do have to keep that into consideration for them. Look for the Mass DOT match response for those items.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Any further?
No, but my second question was, and you said you're going to Capcom on November 13th. We had seems to me a pretty long discussion last week about the 6 million for employee housing, and we talked about some other options. What is the current plan for how that's going to be presented to Capcom?
That was for FY28, so that wasn't for the 27 year for the housing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's no update that I have for that.
I do think on that point, though, we will have to have, discussion on our strategy and what we're gonna present there.
Absolutely.
For housing to Capcom, and that, may not, I think are in agreement, and tell me if I'm wrong as commission, that we can't just go in there with the same thing as before, and that a revised approach, as we discussed, not to rehash it, perhaps limiting it on a bedroom amount and seeing, where we could maybe have a bit of a compromise. That number that had been put out last time, I think at 600,000 a bedroom as a goal does seem to be closer in line with some recent market type sales that I just had looked at out of curiosity, and compared, on say like half townhouse type units. So maybe that's where we do end up.
Correct. I experienced the same thing though, recently.
Yeah,
Sure. That exact number.
yep. So, okay. And then moving on to the final operating budget, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to turn the time over to our finance manager, to Ms. Basheva, to present the budget.
Good evening, everyone. Julie is going to share the screen. I'm just going to start with some general info. The town manager issued the budget instructions on September 8th, and the deadline to submit, I'm sorry, the light turned off. The deadline to submit our budget through OpenGov was September 29th. During the month of September, I reached out to department heads as usual and discussed any potential large increases for the new fiscal year, which will begin on July 1st, 2026. I also met with the airport manager and the assistant airport manager to discuss the budget and any potential increases. I took into consideration the actuals from the last 3 years and reviewed all current multi-year contracts we have for any significant increases. And really, if you can go on the next page, I'll start with the salary budget. Again, this year I used OpenGov to develop the salary portion of the budget. This is the same software used by the town for all departments and enterprises. Includes any potential cost of living adjustments and any step promotions that they have been incorporated already based on our most current workforce plan. Longevity and Medicare are calculated based on the software automatically as well. We have not added any new positions for fiscal 2027. The increase, I'm just going to go over some of the budget line items to explain some of the differences in percentages. The first one, the increase in the operations salary line item is due to the new operations position that we added now in fiscal 2026. The decrease in maintenance is a result of moving that same newly added position from maintenance to operations, because originally this position was budgeted in maintenance and with the idea that it will be a placeholder for either one of the departments, whoever has the better need for it. And at a meeting a couple months ago was decided this position will be added to operations. Additionally, a couple of long-term employees retired from maintenance. And that's another reason why maintenance shows such a large deficit year over year. Security, the reason for the deficit there is because originally when we budgeted the positions, we had the assistant terminal manager here in security, but actually right now it is in the administration, which is the first line item, and that's why over there we have an increase of 5.5%. Seasonal salaries increased by $60,000 or almost 18% to align fiscal 2025 actuals. This significant increase is due to the rise in our pay rates. Earlier this calendar year, we adjusted our rates to match the town's rates. We are also providing bonuses for seasonal employees, and most of our seasonal employees are long-term returning seasonals who are already at the pay cap. We have a schedule that we follow, and we review it every year. We do increase that pay cap as well as needed. We are very pleased that this past summer we were fully staffed in the season with all seasonals. We even had seasonal employees in parking and in maintenance. Billy, if you scroll a little bit down, you could see that the overall payroll budget is up $25,639 or less than 1% compared to fiscal 2026 budget. And just for comparison to the prior year, the salary budget was up 13% compared to fiscal 2025. And I'm just going to stop here for a second to ask if you have any questions on the salary portion of the budget.
Commissioners, any questions on the salaries that was just reviewed? The screen is quite small, so I can't see Ms. Planzer or Mr. Levitt.
No.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue, please.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our operating side of the expense side of the budget. The first line item, I have increased the electricity budget by $26,000 or 6% based on fiscal 2025 actuals and the new account we are having already for the dorm. As you all know, electricity price in Massachusetts went up significantly over the last year. Really, it's a little bit down. You go on the next page. I'm on the expense side. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. Ooh, go down.
Page 3 or 2, Maria?
3, page 3. Okay, there you go. All the next line items regarding utilities are usually increasing each year, and we now have the additional accounts for the dorm. Fiscal 2026 will be the first year we operate the dorm, so I didn't have any actual data to use. I plan to roll over the budgeted numbers from fiscal 2026, even though they're slightly higher than the 3-year average actuals. For all those reasons, any potential increases and all these additional accounts for the dorm that I don't have any data yet for. Next line items are repair and maintenance, and I'm just going to present them as a group. I'm rolling over as they were approved in fiscal 2026, all repair and maintenance accounts. I received some requests from the maintenance department for some line item increases, but since last year we didn't spend what we budgeted for. I don't think that it's necessary to increase those. We have plenty of budget in those line items. Historically, we always have budgeted higher in repair and maintenance accounts because we can know what might come from now, from a year from now or even more. This additional budget is giving us some stability and flexibility. The one line item that I wanted to point out is the repair and maintenance of the Nobody dorm. Commissioner Levitt suggested we decrease this one to $30,000, and we add that additional revenue since we already submitted our total operating budget. I would add that additional budgeted expense into our contingency account. And I don't have anything against this this change. If the commission is feeling more comfortable, we can definitely do that. I just didn't have enough data. That was the number originally requested for this line item by the previous manager. So I'm willing to do it either way, and we can always adjust it at any time we want. And I just wanted to ask if you have any questions regarding this, or if you feel
Yes.
more comfortable about this.
Since you just brought up that one point, why don't we just spend a couple of minutes on it? Cause I had another idea and I just thought I would kick it around with the commission. I agree. I think that the 180 was on the basis, from my discussions with the previous manager, that there was consideration of having a, like a third party management firm, and that would cover kind of that contract. And if we're kind of taking care of that ourselves for at least the first year, we may not need that. I do think it's a good idea to keep some extra in there, even though it's a brand new building, but almost because it is a brand new building, and what might pop up that that might fall under this as if there's a need for something that has to be addressed. But in terms of where we move it, I was wondering if we should consider, and when I say move it, I think if we were talking about the $150,000 delta, if we were to leave the 30 as suggested by Commissioner Levitt, and just for consideration, should we think about, and I would defer to staff on this, this is like, I know it's on the fly a bit, but putting it towards the Thompson House, where we only have 15,000 there, and if we were gonna, since we haven't figured out the housing plan there, might a little extra to that house help us get a couple more years? And is it something we want to think about, or is this all just, it's better to just put it into that other spot? So that was something I wanted to kind of put out there for consideration, or at least input from staff, whether you thought that if we don't take that house offline as fast as maybe we thought we would, what might it need, and might that be something we should consider? And Mr. Levitt, I'll turn it over to you. That was just one of my thoughts. I know since you had suggested this, what your thoughts on the issue might be.
Well, just the background on my thoughts, and I've had a number of conversations with Maria, who I think's done a terrific job on this. As I understand this budget that we submit to the town, we have the ability, once it's approved, to move dollars between line items, and it's really the total at the bottom. And I know we're trying to get it into the right slots on each line. But if in fact we have some extraordinary expense, whether it's for the brand new dorm or for the old one that you just mentioned, Thompson House, it seems to me if this funding is sitting in contingency line, then it indeed is a contingency, and then can be moved to any other line where it may be needed during the year, instead of right now trying to predict where we might need it.
That's fine. I mean, I understand that. That's why I just put it, I wanted to kind of open the bigger discussion that if we had that kind of bucket of money that we were thinking about for that housing maintenance purposes, whether we should start, and this probably leads to the next discussion in another month or two on the housing, but I don't know that it matters that much, whether it goes to that line item or the contingency, whatever you guys think. I defer to you. Really, Maria, and I know Mr. Levitt, if you feel strongly that it just goes into the contingency, I think I think it's semantics, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Anything further on the repair and maintenance aspect of the budget that was just reviewed? So why don't we keep going?
Okay, the next budget line item is for the tools and equipment. I have increased this one by $10,000 due to current fiscal 2026 actuals that you cannot see. But we are not even halfway through the year, and we already spent $16,400 on new equipment and tools. Given the current market climate and the price and prices might continue to rise, maintenance and custodial staff are regularly purchasing additional equipment or replacing old items. We are also planning to hire an additional custodian, and we're gonna need some more equipment there. So that was my idea behind it, and I'm increasing that budget line item with $10,000. The next one is the fuel storage facility maintenance account that shows a decrease of $200,000. But this is because we had additional budget from the transfer to the general fund that I incorporated into this budget line item. As you all know, we paid off our debt in full in May to the town. And at this point, it was too late to make any adjustments to our fiscal 2026 budget. Of that $188,000 that they are currently budgeted for the fuel storage facility, $110,000 is allocated for contracts and annual maintenance items, and the remaining funds are set aside for potential price increases or any additional services we might need for the fuel farm. I added $50,000 to the special events budget line item based on the actuals from fiscal 2024. When we last held a drill, we are required to conduct this drill once every 3 years. And next year, we are planning to have one. The next budget line item, it's the FBO catering expense line that has been decreased by $40,000 or 50% based on fiscal 2025 actuals. And I know it seems a lot, but this is a little bit, I must say, a housekeeping item. As some of you may know, we changed the way we do business with the catering companies. In the past, we would charge the aircraft directly for the full catering order, including our markup fee and taxes, and then we will reimburse that caterer through our AP process, keeping only our 25% markup fee. This was the budget line item that we used to reimburse all these caterers, and we are currently doing business the old ways, only with one caterer that their business is significantly down. And I'm planning before next season to discuss this with our FBO supervisor and hopefully make it work and get the vendor to cooperate and change the way how we do business with them as well. The FBO purchases budget line item has been decreased
Sorry,
because, oh,
Is
yes,
that point, just sort of, if not, it seems to me that would be part of a lease or a license agreement. Sorry, not a lease, a license agreement with them. I mean, it's nice to get flexibility with a change, but you know, let's do what's best for the airport, please.
I agree. And I'm definitely planning before the new summer season to change that.
Yeah, if we have to make it, if you need the commission's help, I just is what I would like to just point out there is that hopefully they'll come along.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. The next budget line item is the FBO purchases. It has been decreased because I removed the one-time expense request that it was added in fiscal 2026. It was for pilot lounge furniture. And the current budgeted amount is matching what the department really spent in fiscal 2025. The personnel uniforms, I wrote over the same number from fiscal 2026, although we didn't spend the full amount in fiscal 2025 for any potential price increases, and plus the fact that now we have 2 additional full-time employees. Both are added now in fiscal 2026. One is in operations and one will be in custodial. Equipment rental budget line item is based on our current lease with Ascent for our fuel trucks. Historically, we have spent less than budgeted because sometimes there is an issue with one of the trucks or multiple trucks, and once they're out of service, we do not need to pay rent for them. So this budgeted amount is what we supposed to pay, deal world, if all the trucks are working and we need to pay rent for 12 months. I removed the budget for employee housing because originally this was a budget line item requested by the previous airport manager for any expenses regarding the dorm. For it could be furniture or any other whatever it was discussed with the commission at the time. Last year we used it to pay for the current manager's temporary housing, so at this time is not needed anymore. Our snow removal account is rolled over as it was in fiscal 26 for the same reason as repair and maintenance accounts. We have been lucky to not have any bad storms or blizzards, but if we do, we have enough money in the budget to cover it. The rubbish pickup budget is higher than 3-year average because we have a new contract with Reese Trucking, and now we do have a new account for the dorm. Professional service, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought you guys have a question.
Yeah, okay.
Moving on to professional services, the budget line item includes contracts and services for the amount about $630,000. It has an additional amount of $100,000 for any miscellaneous projects that the airport or commission might decide to do by next year and we haven't planned for. We also have a 10% on top of it for any potential inflation or price increases for some of the contracts that will expire by July 1st, 2026. And I just want to mention that it is always good to have some extra money budgeted in professional services. And a good example is now the Fuel Farm expansion project. If the commission is to pursue a new task order with MJ, we obviously didn't plan for it now in fiscal 2026, so the money will go out of our operating budget, and we do not have a capital article at this time. The budget line item for advertising covers all our public notices and job postings. The amount spent depends on the projects we have going on this in this current year. So I'm just planning to roll over the same number as last year. I have
Maria,
yes.
Hey, man, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You probably don't have to do every line item.
Okay, I know. I just last year
want
was my first year doing it,
No.
and I know. So
I know, I really appreciate it. We have it in the budget. I don't mean to cut you off. I just,
I'll-
we have it in perhaps we could hit on the bigger changes. If
okay,
it's same
we can totally
one,
do
but if
that.
there's something that, there's a few that I think it is worth hitting on why you decided to, not, for example, professional service that you put it in, but I don't think we have to go through every single line item.
Okay, I understood. So next, I'm just looking at some big changes we might have.
That'd be helpful.
One I want to mention the environmental budget line item. It looks like that, and I don't have any data because it was originally requested for first time in fiscal 2026. It was for invasive species management. We currently still don't have a contract, and I'm not really sure when exactly what we are going to do. But per airport manager's recommendation, I'm rolling over the exact same number as budgeted in fiscal 26, and we do have those money if needed. Another line item I just want to mention is the security line item budget. I've decreased it $7,800 because of one-time expense that they requested for this fiscal year. The budget is higher than 3-year average because we always need to include some extra money for emergency items or any requirements required by TSA, I'm sorry. Our current contract with Pavilion will expire next year, and our security manager expects an increase of about $20,000. We're also covering some other expenses, and good example for this one is that we and the commission currently approved this contract for another $32,000 emergency repair for the archiver that we really had to do. So it's always really good to have some extra money there, and security has already spent a year to date in fiscal 26, 90% of their budget, and they have just $14,000 left. So that's why I'm planning to roll over the exact same number. Moving on down to miscellaneous purchasing and operations, same reason. They had some requests for fiscal 2026 that they were one-time purchases. We got those, so I'm removing them in fiscal 2027. Adjusting couple line items down the road for based on actuals, and our debt and principal and interest are down because it's based on our debt service schedule. Overall, our expense side of the budget is down 5% or $334,760, which is for comparison with last year, the budget was decreased as well, but with only 1%. And I'm just gonna stop for a second. Any questions on operating budget?
On the expense side. Ms. Plant or Mr. Levitt?
Just two quick questions. Can we go back up to that environmental line item?
Yes.
It seems to be 125,000 in there because there was the possibility we were going to do something on invasive species management. There may have been, I apologize if there were discussions on that before I joined the commission, but is there a plan to put in a program on that? And is that why we have money there? Or is that no longer an active project?
I'll have to defer this to either the airport manager or the environmental coordinator.
Yeah, Ms. Collins, please.
So we'll know more about that by the end of the month. We have our technical advisory committee that is on October 30th, and that's when we meet with Brett and Kip from VHB, and then the Natural Heritage personnel there. What I do know is that we do have ongoing invasive species removal for a few things like mugwort, Japanese knotweed, and I think it's called Japanese barberry. And that needs, when I was last out in the field, it looks like that needs to be something that's reoccurring. And we have to have a subcontract of VHB do that specialized work because they have special chemicals that they need to use, and someone needs to be like specifically trained on using those chemicals as biologists.
And so that 125 is based upon a ballpark estimate you got from the contractor that was going to do this?
I did not get the numbers on this.
That number
No,
was put
more
in place by NOAA.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that was from the former manager who was who himself was the former environmental coordinator. The question that I have, and I've always have been a proponent of the airport managing its invasive species as part of its overall land management. The question is, what aspect of that is required to remain compliant with our conservation and management permits versus I think there were a couple of areas, particularly outside of the fence, that would be responsible land management, particularly the big berm at the end of Nobody Farm Road and Old South Road that's completely covered in knotweed. I know that was what Mr. Carberg had wanted to target, and I think that would be a good goal. But I can tell you from work that I do, it is typically a minimum of 3 years to get effective control using herbicides, and sometimes a combination of mechanical means. But I can't answer your question, Mr. Levitt, in terms of the basis of that number, other than it did, I believe, was sourced from Mr. Carberg.
So I guess my response to that would be not to necessarily repeat myself, but perhaps move that down into the contingency budget. And if FinCom or whoever is reviewing this questions the size of the contingency budget, we can point out items like this where the funds may be needed, but then they're not necessarily parked here where we haven't identified how that money is going to be spent and how much money is going to be required. And it would seem to be prudent management to have a sufficient amount in a contingency line item that then can be moved to other projects that come up during the year, such as this. I just hate to see it sitting there where nobody's identified an amount, even a ballpark amount or timing on it.
I could agree with that. Might I suggest that similar to the other item, we would keep 25 and maybe move 100 just to make sure that there is a line item and hopefully an action, understanding that some action on a budgetary basis is expected for invasive species management. I mean, would that be reasonable?
Absolutely. That's totally fine.
Mr. Levitt?
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Any other questions on the expense side of the budget?
Oh, so let's move on, please.
Okay. Moving on to revenue. The first line item is the passenger facility charge. Really, it's on the next page, page 5. I just want to mention on this one that the budget is really recommended by our consultants, MJ. As some of you might know or not know, but the PFCs are based on employments, and really it takes, let's say, for example, JetBlue to change their schedule for our revenue to go significantly down. So MJ, it's suggesting that we keep that number for now. The next line item is the fuel sales. I've chose $2.3 million, which is 18% of the budget, and this has been historically what percentage we usually budget from the total revenue budget. This is the only plug, if you want to call it that way, account that we use to balance the budget. We also have the fuel revolver, as you know, and that is a separate special revenue fund, and it has an annual spending limit. Fuel sales revenue until reaching that spending limit are staying in the fuel revolver, and all revenue in excess of the fuel revolver stays in our operating budget. The next line item, I'm just going pretty much all of the budget line items down to the catering income are based either on 3-year average or either on current leases and number of businesses we're doing work with. I'm still staying very conservative. It is local government, and even though we had some high numbers last year, I prefer still to budget lower than what we might still anticipate, because we never know, and that's usually the standard policy and how the rest of municipalities budget their budgets. The catering income budget line item has been decreased for the same reason that I explained earlier regarding the expense account. From now on, this line item will include only our 25% markup fee. So that's why it has been decreased. And then lastly, the interest on investments has been decreased based on recent drop in rates. Although we haven't fully seen the impact, and probably I'll see it on the September statement. Some rates might be declined even further in the future. Additional factor was that when I was looking at interest, the first 2 months from the fiscal year last year, we collected $300,000 in interest, and in this fiscal year for July and August, we've collected only $200,000. So I feel confident that although we're probably going to receive more money in the interest, this number is still okay. And overall, the total revenue budget is down 2% or $309,121. And again, really, if you go just to the first page, to page number 1, I just wanted to show that we are again using a transfer from PFC for the amount of $400,000 as we have been for many years to balance our budget. We are reimbursing ourselves annually for the old terminal project based on our most current PFC application. And lastly, I just want to mention that we do have a budget meeting with town administration and finance. The end of this month is on the 27th, and they're going to review and ask their questions as well. So I will leave it for any questions, and I'll please ask for your approval of the budget.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any further questions, suggestions?
Nice job.
Mr. Levitt or Ms. Blazer?
No, not for me.
Nope.
Okay, with that, is there a motion to, and that would be with the 2 changes, to move, those 2 amounts to the contingency line item? Is there, a motion to approve the proposed budget?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Ms. Blazer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt?
Aye.
Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Manager Smith, your report, please.
But yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So going through the project updates, looking at the AIP projects, the concrete hard stands at gate 1, 2, and 2 alpha. The scope has been completed and it's ready for our review within the airport management side of the house. As I had mentioned earlier in the meeting, Mass DOT will be unable to provide the financial assistance and support for the hard stands as they had outlined due to their 10% reduction. We'd already discussed the CIP with the FAA. Moving down, high mast lights. The contract was presented to you earlier and looks like that was approved with the project slated for spring of 2026 start date. We're just awaiting the schedule from Kobo. For the master plan, we did have the final open house that was conducted for the general public back on September 11th. That was nicely attended, had various questions predominantly regarding noise abatement, as well as just the future capital projects. The final documents for the master plan were sent to the FAA for their final review and approval, and we're just awaiting their responses. For DBE, ACDBE, so that stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprises and Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprises. On October 3rd, the DOT published an interim final rule regarding updates to the DBE and ACDBE programs effective immediately. What this rule does is it eliminates race and sex-based presumptions in the program, which is a key principle for determining whether the individuals who own and control a firm are considered disadvantaged, and whether the firm qualifies as a DBE and ACDBE. It requires that all firms to be reevaluated by our UCP, which is Mass DOT. There are UCP that evaluates these companies as quickly and as practical as possible, and that no new contract goals are allowed until this has been done. And currently, all of our goals set forth by the FAA and Mass DOT are basically set back down to 0 while we're waiting this update to this program. So more to come there. It's business as usual. Currently, we don't have any projects right now that would seek for the DBE goals. So really, it doesn't affect us in the moment. However, if this drags on, of course, then it would be another story. And we're working with legal on this issue and just keeping everyone apprised. All right, non-AIP, the sound barrier noise wall. The shop drawings were provided by Premier Fence, and MJ is currently reviewing those and to give their approval of those by the end of this week. And we should have a schedule, if not by the end of this week, by early next week for the noise project. Sorry. Tenant alteration applications, just an update. Airport Gas is currently doing their tank replacement. It's a big project. The new tanks look like they are actually in place now. They've been very good at keeping that airport road clear for passengers, and that just continues to progress forward. Tradewind did present a TAA. They frosted the plain glass door and placed a vinyl decal to direct their guests to the lounge door. They changed the current pin padlock to a newer model and gave us the code. And they just added new solar lights to the landside exterior of the building just to prevent falls in the dark. I'll stop there if anybody has any questions on AIP and non-AIP.
Questions? Nope.
Just quickly, the high mast light project and the sound wall project, which sounds like they're gonna run into the spring. How much work on each is going to be going on during peak season next summer? Are they expected to be complete by then or working through it?
Yeah, they'll be completed before the commercial season begins. So there shouldn't be any disruption at all to operations with those two projects.
Great.
I have a question on the noise project. Can you tell me about that?
So it's that new sound wall barrier that they're gonna put
Oh.
down at the south ramp extension. They've got the shop drawings done for that, and once MJ gets their approval to Premier Fence, they'll give us a schedule. The intent is to have the bases put in this fall, and then it's kind of like a Lego set piece. Once the bases are in, the rest of the sound barrier just kind of fits into place, and that is to be done in the spring, as far as we were told.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to just RFPs. We're currently working with legal on getting the flat roof RFP in place, as we had outlined in the RFI initially, that we would do an RFP afterward. Currently Tradewind is in the flat roof right now, and their contract expires December 31st of this year. We've received a lot of early interest from multiple parties to move the RFP up from spring till now, so that basically a new contract can be in place January 1st once Tradewind's lease expires. So we are working on that right now to hopefully get that out on the street here in the next week or two. Operations update. JetBlue and Cape Air are now our final two Part 121 operators currently in the terminal. JetBlue has gone from 5 flights to 2 flights a day starting today, and next Monday is their last day of service for the season. Of course, Cape Air will continue the Part 121 operation to Boston for the remainder of the fall, winter, and spring. I just want to thank Ops for a great season, also for my staff as well, for a successful summer. Definitely was busy, lived up to its hype. I feel it now that I'm here. But just I definitely see the pros, the cons, and really what we need to work on and to focus on for next year. So thank you. Baggage belt system. The roll-up door to the baggage belt system going into baggage makeup malfunctioned. The parts arrived last Thursday, and they're on board for tomorrow for the maintenance technician to be here to fix them. Of course, he could have been here earlier had the boats been running over the weekend, unfortunately, due to the storm. But the remainder of the belt system has been functioning properly since the last hiccup we had a couple months ago. So no issues there. During that time, though, the TSA did ask for a staff member to sit landside just to monitor the door for security purposes. We did staff somebody there at all times during normal operations. The airport has chosen a quote to replace the carpet in the TSA screening area and the TSA offices. The work is scheduled for January 5th to be done during the slow season with minimal disruption to Cape Air. The carpet looks to be a navy blue color, so it will definitely look a lot better. TSA, our airport has a new TSA inspector for the next 3 years, Latoya Philoctet, I guess is how you say her name. So we welcome her and are excited to see to just have her on board and to be waiting for her for our next audit. So we are scheduling the annual FAA Part 139 required snow and ice meeting for the upcoming season with our stakeholders here in the next coming weeks. So prepare for that. I'm excited. I know it's hard to believe that we're already starting to talk about winter ops, but here we are. And so we are required to have that conversation. So look for that on the calendar. The tent is scheduled to come down November 14th. However, due to the recent storms, we're now eyeballing potentially bringing it down the end of this weekend. So long as we can get JetBlue to move their equipment. I know that their last flight is Monday. We might be able to move things a little earlier and let JetBlue just continue to operate inside the terminal since they're just down to 2 flights. So we're working on them with that. But just the winds were crazy. I did experience my first nor'easter, and it's no joke. So yeah. Training, ARF is going to be doing extrication training on the 21st and with ASOS weather automation training to follow. No updates from IT. However, I did reach out to Skylar. I do believe he has set up the S drive to be put on the cloud. I think that's done as far as being able to have the commissioning board have access to the S drive remotely. I'm just waiting to get verification from there, but I do believe that that will be an option. So far as you guys might need to find some documentation, you'd be more than welcome to go on the S drive and look at it yourselves without having to ask us for that. So it gives you guys a little bit of more flexibility there. So I'll get you an update, hopefully the next meeting for that. Fuel sales, of course, continue to see record sales, as outlined in the statistical report. As we had discussed, 100 low lead has increased dramatically this year just due to Cape Bear's new and enhanced routes. NBC Peacock finished filming this last month for their video 5-star weekend. It was a success. There was no issues and no hiccups with our tenants in the terminal. So nice job to the staff, and we're glad that it's over. We did do a closeout on our taxiway golf and ARF truck grants with the FAA for reimbursement. We are currently working on closing out the runway 624 and the South Apron ramp projects as well. So more to come there. Just an update with the government shutdown. It definitely appears that this is going to be dragging on a lot longer, with really no end in sight. But we do want to let commissioners know, as well as the general public, that there is no impact to both our TSA and our air traffic control at this time. It is still business as usual. We don't anticipate any hiccups and any impacts right now. However, should that change, we'll let everybody know. We are approaching collective bargaining season. The airport's maintenance, ARF operations, and janitor teams are union employees under the LIUNA, or the what does that stand for? Labor's Union of North America. And we should be having our kickoff meeting scheduled either the October 30th through November 4th. We picked a couple of dates to sit down with them and basically begin the negotiations. Their contract has expired June 30th of next year. Another potential update, there is a house move occurring on October 22nd. I guess it's a thing here in Nantucket where you can physically pick up your house and move it to another location, which I think is really cool. They do have a rain date of the 23rd. The route is going from Tom Nevers down to Surfside, I believe. However, it comes down Nobodere Farm Road, I think a street called Arrowhead, kind of loops around, connects back up to the Old South Road. There is the potential for power loss only to the northern airfield lights and the approach lights. However, we do have a generator. It's been serviced. It runs every week. It's working properly. Should we lose power, we're ready for that. There is no impact to the terminal, no impact to the FBO at this time for any power loss. So business as usual for TSA, for ATCT. It would just be the main lights on the north end of the airport. So see how that goes. And then the last thing with this section is we did have a visit from Department of Homeland Security back on September 23rd. The cybersecurity and infrastructure team was on site to review the airport security plan and infrastructure. They go around the country looking at airport security measures. They have it in their budget just to go around and basically just provide insight, see what we have and say, hey, we see any holes that you could reinforce or whatnot, just give us their input. It was very well done. They took notes, they did walk around, they observed the security infrastructure, and they're just drafting their findings on how to boost and fine tune our security procedures and protocols and infrastructure here at the airport. Once their plans and findings are done, they're going to give that to me. It's eyes only for me, and then I'm free to share that with the commission and with my staff. So more to come there, but it was very well done. Very pleased with the two gentlemen that came. So yeah, look forward to see what they have to say. I'll stop there before I get to statistics if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Statistics, I don't think you have to go through every page. Well, we just hit a highlight.
Yeah, we read them all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Operations are up 35%. Southwest operations were up 1% as well. Employments were up for 13%. And then really just the main ones is just 100 low lead is up 385%. In fuel sales, just due to the enhanced routes with Cape Air. They flew 166% increase to Martha's Vineyard and 105% to New Bedford there. So overall, things are looking good when it came to employments for this season. I do believe that the total employments for the full commercial season were up 0.6%, which is the first increase, I want to say, in about 8-9 years for the airport when it comes to employment. So we're glad to see that more people are coming to the island. All right, noise complaints. We did have 37 new noise complaints. 6 were for overhead flights, 2 near Surfside, 3 near the residence in Dialis Beach, and 1 from Cisco Beach. 14 complaints were IFR related from just one person. Same with the other 14. They were for VFR operations from one individual, and 3 complaints for single overhead aircraft, but we weren't able to investigate because we had software issues. With that being said, the airport is seeking to work with a company called Hughes Aerospace. Hughes provides, basically they provide corridor flying and kind of fine tooth the corridor flights. And we've asked them to look at our corridors right now, how the routes are structured and kind of fine tooth it in relation to noise abatement. They did give us their quote. However, because they're really heavily funded by the FAA and with the government shutdown right now, they're a little apprehensive when it comes to funding right now. So we're just kind of putting some things on hold until we get a better understanding of what's going to happen with the federal government, and then they could be kind of fully back up and operational. So we are looking to work with them, and we do think it is a good move for the airport. I can provide that quote to you guys and more to come there. The last thing that I have for the statistics report is we are also working with 1200 Aero on possible software building for us to basically show APU runtime on the ramp. It will let us know when an aircraft fires up its APU and how long it's been sitting on the ramp to try to minimize the APU usage and to minimize that noise being generated from the aircraft on the ramp. So more to come there. And then the last thing is, as we had mentioned, we do have a new ARF employee who was hired, Michael. We currently have a job opportunity on the streets for a new manager who will provide cleaning services for the FBO, the ARF, and the terminal areas. We've never had a full-time janitor at the FBO, so we think this is a good idea for us to get the cleaning that we need at our FBO at the ARF as well, and then they can fill in at the terminal during like peak seasons, peak holiday weekends where there's more need there. And then just one last thing. The town of Nantucket is hosting an employee appreciation night coming up here next month, and 3 of our employees received recognition for their years of service. The first person is Maria Bashiva. She has been with the town for 5 years. Eddie O'Keefe for 5 years, and Garrett Allen, our superintendent of maintenance, for 25 years. So definitely commend them for their years of service. We're grateful for all that they do for us, and yeah, all I have.
Thank you. Any
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
you missed the commission meeting calendar for 2026.
Oh, we got to do that
Oh.
next. Yeah, thanks. Were there any questions on statistics or the personnel report? I just wanted to point out, well, go ahead, Mr. Levitt.
Just one question on the statistics. When I look at the page with Southwest Ramp operations, and then you have a separate passenger enplanements that lists trade winds. When you look at the year-over-year data, when trade winds moved into the terminal, did their count start getting picked up there? And in prior years, were their enplanements included in the Southwest Ramp operations?
Yes, that is true. They know that they've been stalwart in getting us their data with their passengers coming through that flat roof building. But yes, you're right. Initially, they were going through the FBO. That's where we were getting the numbers. So there might be a little bit of difference there. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
So some of the year-over-year decrease is really just moving trade winds onto the other report.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And just one other quick thing, when you reported that JetBlue shutting down and we're left with just Cape Air, Tradewinds did announce that they are going to run their White Plains flights straight through the winter. So there will be one other option and one other carrier here this year.
The one I was going to mention that stuck out to me on statistics was the employments and the increase year over year just for the month of August, and really for the month of just focusing in on the month of August. I don't think this comes as a surprise to those of us living here, but last year you had an increase of 5,000 employments in the month of August. And the delta just from 2022 to 2026 is 10,000. So, I mean, that's a period of pretty significant, robust growth, I think. And I only pointed out, and especially the 5,000, it seems, trying to wonder where as I mine the data to attribute that to. I think it's a fair portion does seem to be to both Cape Air and JetBlue. But it's a rather significant increase year over year, month of August. So, and of course, getting back to everything that we have to, hats off to you and your staff. All of that understanding factors into workload and customer service. So thank you. There's nothing further on those, then we'll go on to is there any questions or concerns with the proposed calendar for next year for commission meetings that was in the packet? Continuing on our second Tuesday approach of things. So we'll consider that adopted.
I do have a comment, from February, March and April, there is a conflict here with the trailer. So we're wondering if you guys be willing to hold those 3 virtual.
I think that's fine. Is anything else fine? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Very good. And that will take us back to, are there any commissioners' comments, items for future agenda items or was on the agenda?
No.
None. And public comment. Not seeing any
No public
members of the
comment.
public. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Blanchard, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt?
Aye.
Marks? Karen?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm sure we've got some stuff to sign. It's. Billy, did you bring the letter you had asked me about?
I did.
Okay, thanks. I
Yeah.
just got back.
That's